Parsha for Parshat Devarim. This week's Parsha, or I should say this Shabbat, is not only known as Shabbat Devarim, but aka it's also known as Shabbat Chazon. And that is because Devarim is always read in the closest proximity to Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. Tisha B'Av is the anniversary of the destruction of the first and the second temple. Parshat Devarim, after we conclude the actual reading of the Torah, as we do every Shabbat, we read a Haftorah, we read a chapter from the prophets. And this week's Parsha is followed by a reading from the book of Yeshayahu, from the prophet Isaiah. And it begins with the word Chazon, Yeshayahu ben Amos. This is the vision of the prophet Yeshayahu, the son of Amos. And because it begins with the word Chazon, that is why this Shabbat is called Shabbat Chazon. It's famous for this reading, for this Haftorah. Question: what is it really that this Haftorah is talking about? And why is it so special that whereas any other Shabbat doesn't typically get named by its, or become famous by its Haftorah, this one is? Well, Chazon is actually a very, very unpleasant vision. This is the vision in which Yeshayahu, the prophet Isaiah, he warns the Jews and he tells them about the impending destruction. Just FYI, the destruction didn't just happen suddenly out of the blue. It didn't just a one day, just, a blitzkrieg and Jerusalem was conquered. It was a whole elaborate development of consequences. And over time, that the prophets, they came and they admonished the Jews and they begged them, they pleaded with them, please, please return from your bad ways. And they did not. And Yeshayahu was one of those prophets. Isaiah was one of those prophets. And this is his terrible vision, quote, as he saw on Jerusalem and its people. Thus, the name Chazon. But the truth is, if we dig a little deeper, there is actually something tremendously positive about this whole thing. And that really, I believe, is the message, meaning the reason why this Shabbat becomes famous as Shabbat Chazon. Question: the prophet Isaiah, and let's take the prophet Jeremiah. They were both contemporaries, and they both lived around the same time. They both were prophets who were telling the Jews off, warning them, pleading with them, begging them to return from their bad ways. How come the choice of reading for this very last Shabbat, the Shabbat that sets the tone for Tisha B'Av, and in some years, as this year, Tisha B'Av actually falls out on Shabbat? Why is it that we read from the prophet Isaiah, Yeshayahu versus Yirmiyahu? Because in fact, Yirmiyahu is called the prophet of the destruction. Because most of the book Yirmiyahu, although it has some positive prophecies and talk a little bit about the future, the good that will befall the Jewish people when Mashiach comes in the future, in the distant future, but still primarily he is known for his prophecies, I call it, of doom. Versus Yeshayahu, Isaiah, he is called Navi HaGeula, the prophet of redemption, the prophet that tells us so much about what Mashiach, the era of Mashiach, the coming of Mashiach, what will be, what the world will look like. He makes it real. He paints that picture for us in his amazing words. Also, some chapters speak about the doom. Some chapters speak about the destruction. Why is it the tradition to read his prophecy of destruction, if we want to drive that point home, the impact would be so much greater if we read from Prophet Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. But that's precisely the point, and that's the lesson. Even when we're reading about the destruction, we're having the chazon, the vision of destruction. But really, who are we getting it from? And when we think who we're getting it from, we start to see the signals, we start to see the clues that this is not the end. This is just a phase. This is just a point that we have to cross for whatever reason. But really the ultimate is the good prophecies of this very same prophet and the visions that he had. So in the bad, even where it seems to be so bad and so terrible, even then Hashem is telling us, don't just have a vision of the bad, have a broader vision. See the whole picture, the picture of good. Typically in life, when something bad happens to us, we so much live in the moment that we just lose all perspective. And it seems like this is it, this is the end, that's it, it's all so bad, and we go crazy. We lose ourselves as if that's it, this is the end of the road. There is no other road, there's just a big cliff. And that's the message. Chazon. Yes, he had some bad prophecies to say. Yes, there were some craters in this road. But it's not a cliff, it's not the end. You're not falling off. This same prophet has so much to say about the good, about Mashiach coming, about the time, when the Gar Ze'ev and Keves, that the wolf will lie right near the lamb, and so on and so forth, when there'll be peace in the world. And thus, even in our darkest moments, we all go through difficulties, we go through hardships in life. Until such time that Mashiach is here, which should be speedily, there always will be some difficult moments. There will be glitches. There will be snags. There will be maybe potholes, craters. But remember, Chazon Yeshayahu. When you see the vision, when you see the bad, don't just get stuck on what you see right here, right now. Have the bigger vision of Yeshayahu. Shalom.